Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Today we're interviewing Mike Gaines. Not only is Mike an incredible leader, he's an author, podcast host, and incredible human being. Join us as we walk into his story from his early childhood and the lessons learned that have helped shape the leader he's become today. We all stand to learn a little bit from Mike.
Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Today, we are really excited to have a local celebrity and friend of Mike Gaines. Mike is actually the host of his own podcast called The Positive Gains, as well as an incredible father and leader in the community. So really excited to sit down and have a conversation with Mike about his leadership journey today on the show. Thanks, Mike, for being on.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I like what you guys have been doing.
Awesome, man. So, we'll probably touch on this a little more, but I just saw you dropped a new book, another kid's book.
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Kind of, what led you to that? Why you felt called to do something like that?
You know what? I was bored. Probably, it's terrible, man. Like 4 years ago, my mom used to make me read a lot when I was younger, and especially over the summer, I had to read, maybe like 2 or 3 different books, and then I had to write a book report on them. And depending on how the book report went was going to dictate how my summer went. So I wasn't going to be able to just pencil whip it and put something together. I had to actually put some time into it. And I don't know, I was around the library a lot of times with my kids and different things. And I thought, maybe I can write a book. And now, the latest one, that's, they're all true stories. It's all in somewhat, some things actually happened, in the book, but there's a little bit of, satire in a lot of them. But, the last one that I just wrote was, pretty near and dear to my heart because I am adopted. And I did lose my mom, last year. She got pretty sick and passed away. So the book was kind of a tribute to her and to other families that, might not know too much about adoption, and just like a little journey like that.
Well, man, I try to put myself in those shoes and, kind of opening yourself up like that and the vulnerability to really tell your story like that. Like a lot of people aren't comfortable with. And so I think that's awesome that, you felt the need and desire and then went and did it. Like that's cool. I mean, it can probably inspire a lot of people because, it's not like that's an uncommon thing. So,
Right. Mike, can you tell us a little bit more about your, like, even maybe when you were younger, like what influenced you and maybe what was your kind of foundation for your own leadership and the way you move about the world today?
Yeah, I'd say it starts at home. My upbringing with my mom, a lot of lessons, very, very routine, as far as the childhood, getting up, doing chores in the morning, making sure that I was ready so I wouldn't make her late for work. That was a big thing. So there's no lounging around, anything like that. But yeah, I would have to say, through the church and especially my mom, just kind of watching how she carried herself led me to my own, leadership principles. And I don't do everything exactly the way that she did. I do things obviously a little differently. I think that's part of, being an adult and growing. You got to find a way to tap into, your own family and those around you. So for me, it started at home.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Anything else that stands out, like, and I guess I have a unique perspective, and Tate probably does as well, because we've known you, when you were younger, when we were younger, and just for our listener that doesn't know this, and I don't know if I've ever even told you this, Mike. So if I haven't, I'm
Uh-oh.
sorry, and I'm glad to be telling you now. When I got to high school, I had been going to a charter school, and so I really didn't know a lot of the people at the high school. Everyone that kind of moved up from the middle school, I didn't know many of them. And so I did feel a little bit like an outsider. Like I remember that my freshman year, definitely like even like trying to wear different clothes or whatever I could do to like fit in, it was all that stage of life. And I got put into a more advanced Spanish class because I had taken a lot of Spanish when I was, in middle school. And Mike Gaines was sitting behind me
Uh-oh.
in that class. And I mean, it was full of like all these, no judgment, but like punk kids, right? Like juniors and seniors that just thought they were so cool. And frankly, like weren't super nice people at the
Yeah,
time.
I remember a little bit.
And so I remember thinking then, and as I look back now, it's really clear like that just like your demeanor was different. Like you treated me different, you treated people different. Um and not like in a loud and overpowering way, like in a very like quiet and firm and bold kind of way. And so anyways, thank you. And yeah, anything else you would add, just like where did that come from? And for people listening that want to be more like that or that want to instill that in their kids, any insight?
Yeah, I was a pretty quiet kid, even like from the time I was real shy when I was growing up. And I guess by the time I hit high school, I was kind of in that stage of I was still quiet. I mean, Tate would probably tell you as well. I wasn't really, like you were saying, over, loud and obnoxious or anything like that, but I was always an observer being younger. So even if I wasn't talking because I was shy, I was always watching people. I was a kid that if I got tired of, shopping with my mom, I'd sit on the couch and I would just watch people, in the mall, watch and see what they were doing. I still do that to this day. And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird, but sometimes I think when you take a step back and you're just observing and you're quiet and you're kind of seeing how people interact with one another, you learn so much. And again, that kind of goes back to my mom, because she used to tell me, you don't have to, not every action warrants a response. She said sometimes you got to just sit back and maybe you've offended somebody. She used to tell me, by lashing out, if you are to lash out, sometimes you got to just dial it back in and try to see where people are coming from. Now, especially in high school, I do kind of remember um, some of that class, because I was just talking to Miss Hurado the other day about it, because my son's a freshman now, and yeah, I could be a little bit of a clown with her, but nothing crazy, you know what I mean? But that, yeah, it really helped me to just kind of take a step back and watching people all throughout high school, and it kind of keeps you out of trouble in a way.
Yeah,
So
so
that was,
good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
kind of my mind was going with it, playing sports with you, then, just growing up in the same grade with you is, uh, you were always so respectful and just uh, kind to everyone, in my memory, like, and you never really got drawn into all the other stuff. You kind of were completely content doing your thing. And looking back, I always really admired that about you. And I think that's amazing, because so many people struggle with those types of things.
I wanted to ask you a question, Mike. Just, I don't know you as well as these two guys do. And I think there's some power to being the quiet observer, which it sounds like that maybe that could define you a little bit. I don't want to make that your definition if that's not what you want to be defined as. And just hearing you talk about that, what have you learned about leadership by sitting back and observing others? Like, what have you learned by being willing to be quiet and listen, I guess, a little bit, and observe maybe good and bad examples of leadership?
Yeah, so when I was working at a Boys and Girls Club, and that was the first job that I ever had. I started off as a summer job just to get out of the house, and I wanted to make a little bit of money. Um, and then I had done that job all the way up until I graduated. And then I think when I was 21, I actually took over the entire building. And before, when I was just like a summer help, I used to think that um, like management, like, oh, it's easy. These guys aren't doing anything. They're just sitting back. What a cake job. Like, oh my gosh, if I ever was in this chair, I would do so much, blah, 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 blah. Just all talk, right? Then I get that opportunity. And now I'm, at that time I was 21, and now I have a board, a team of board members that I have to meet with weekly. I was going to Rotary down on Main Street I think it was Wednesday. Now I'm doing all these meetings. I'm having to talk to people that, I probably wouldn't ever. And it wasn't like because we didn't run in the circle. It was just a matter of I wasn't comfortable at that time, but I kind of had no choice, because I accepted the job. So in that year that I was the manager, I really learned a lot about leadership, how you have to deal with so many different characters, whether it's kids, parents, board members, there's fundraising issues. And, with the city of Safford at the time, because we were split, they had cut us off on funding, which I totally understand. I'm not knocking them, but I would really say in that time I had to learn about leadership, how to effectively work and manage people that are the same age as I am, people that I've gone to high school with, where now that I'm the man, I have to have a line, you know what I mean? A professional boundary of we can do this, but we can't do that. And there's no book on it. You just got to learn and grow from it. And I feel like we did a good job, as a team, but as far as like early leadership in a professional setting, it would be down there at that Boys and Girls Club.
No, we probably can't get off into the details of some of it, but how did those leadership lessons and experiences prepare you for the next steps of your career and working for the prison system?
Yeah, the it's funny because when I made the change, it really wasn't too big of a change or a gap. It was very similar dealing with people in custody and children and dealing at the Boys and Girls Club. It kind of helped me be a better parent, because I took a lot of lessons from the early times and learning what some of these kids go through, where when they come to the Boys and Girls Club, that might be the only sense of normalcy that they have. And so if I always said, if you wanted to get humbled, go work over there with different characters of kids, because it'll test you. And so working there helped me, like I said, be a better parent, helped lead me better in the home. I used to run a youth group, and the same principles that I had there, it kind of helped me, propel me into there. And as far as my work history now, working at the federal prison, it's the same thing. Just show up, be on time, treat people right, do a good job. I mean, the principles never change. It's just a different environment.
Oh, and how many years now have you been doing the Positive Gains podcast?
I think I'm closing in on 5. That's right. 5 this May, I believe.
So, have you hit 100 episodes yet?
No, I'm 7 shy. I'm right there though.
Look, dude, that's amazing. So, what was the inspiration behind that? Like, why, and like the core to that, like, obviously the Positive Gains. You're a positive guy. You share good news, good messages. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, we had this thing where if you were in contact with somebody, you automatically got 2 weeks off, whether you showed symptoms or not. So the first time I was at home, we all were at home, bored, watched every episode of Cobra Kai at the time. I ran through it pretty quick because I hadn't watched it. I started watching a lot of like Joe Rogan. I even went back and was watching Ricky Lake. People remember that TV show? Montel. Like, I don't know. I was on a soap opera slash TV talk show thing. And some of the questions that people were asking to me were kind of strange, you know? And I thought, man, if I ever got the chance to do something like that, I would put my own spin on it. And I think I could make it work. So I kind of talked myself into it. I said, I'll try 5. If I do 5 episodes and I like it, then I'll continue. If not, then maybe it's just not for me. And, after 5, I really enjoyed it and I tried to build on it. Yeah, almost 5 years later.
That's incredible, man. What can you tell us a little bit about, like, what you've seen come from that? Like, for you personally, in doing anything for 5 years consistently is like pretty remarkable. And then, yeah, just anything else like that's been created because of your decision to do that and stick with it.
Yeah, and then I forgot to add one of the things is I wanted to show my kids that you can work a 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are in a job, and you can still do something on the side that you like to do. If you're passionate about something and you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn and listen and grow, and you can do it. And so from that, there's been a few people that have come up to me and have told me that their kids are struggling with public speaking and just a fear of a camera. And they were like, hey, I know that you talked about being shy, and now they kind of resonated with that, the fact that they see you doing it, and maybe that gives them hope to not have so much anxiety if they have to get up in front of a class and present something. So, that makes me feel good. And I mean, the feedback's been pretty good. Yeah, it's been challenging at times, but there's times I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to do it. You know what I mean? But that's just that negativity and that doubt. So it's just a matter of trying to build and grow, and hence the books. That's why I tried to build a platform and then just use the Positive Gains as the author name, so that would lead people into either the book or the podcast. I wanted people to find maybe an avenue for them. Maybe you're not a fan of the podcast, but maybe you like reading.
So have you had any mentors or people that have helped kind of coach and guide you through this, or have you been kind of just figuring it out?
Yeah, I've been figuring it out, unfortunately. When I first started, I asked for help from people I didn't know. I found on Instagram, like, hey, I like your setup. Where did you get this at? And I got ghosted. I'll be honest with you. People read it and never responded back. And I was like, whatever. So I did a lot of YouTube searching. I talked to some people that had maybe started one, and then they didn't continue with it. And yeah, it's just been a blessing. I mean, I've been able to meet some really cool people. And sometimes when people see that you're doing something positive and you're trying to make an impact, they bite off of it. And I can't tell you how many like phone calls or texts I get from potential people who want to be on the podcast, and some of these people are on big network things, and I'm like, how'd you get my number? Oh, I got it from so and so. He said that you might want to do something. I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like, I can't believe that you're calling my phone. Like, you sure you got the right number? So it's wild to even think like that. But yeah, it's been a great blessing.
Yes. So, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but how are you getting some of these bigger names on your show? Like,
Yeah.
I know I saw you had was it Omar Gooding on there, or how are you landing that?
Sheer luck, man. I mean, there's I put together a message and I try to make sure that it sounds reasonable and legit to me. So I read it back and I'm thinking, now if somebody were to ask me, would this make sense to me? So I put together a message. I include all my contact info, usually a link tree, and I just send stuff out on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If there's an email available, I'll find the email, and I don't always get a response back. Like the Omar Gooding thing, that took 2 years. A lot of people don't understand that. That took 2 years for that to happen because it got canceled. And then when it got canceled, trying to reschedule it was kind of, I don't want to say a nightmare, but obviously he's a lot busier than I am. So really no secret. I tell everybody I live on Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever and TikTok, and I just send messages out like that.
It's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
I love it. Well, so
Well,
oh, go ahead, Drew.
Go for
I
it,
was
Drew.
gonna say, I think there's a little bit of a hidden message there too. It's like maybe at first, if what you say at first is that it's luck, but you're sharing a message that inspires others, and others want to be a part of that. And so maybe these big names are coming because they want to be associated with what you do, and I would define that as leadership, inspiring others to want to be a part of something greater, a message that's bigger than themselves. It's awesome.
Well, and there's a big difference between sitting around waiting for big names to call you and hitting your DMs and messaging
Yeah.
people, right? Like, I think that's it's definitely, that gets created because you're willing to reach out and send messages and hit people up. And a lot of times I think people wonder like, oh, that'd be cool if I could do that. And it's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You just ask, So, yeah, Mike, tell us a little bit about like the times when you've thought about stopping, or like when the doubt and fear gets mounted against you. What keeps you going? Like, why have you continued to do it?
Well, my mom didn't raise a quitter, but when the doubt set in, I guess maybe a couple years after, I wasn't getting maybe as many people as I wanted to. Schedules are just all over. I was having a big problem with Zoom. Like, I would Zoom somebody in, I would make it private, and people were still hacking it, coming into the chat, and just wild stuff. It was crazy. That's why I don't use Zoom anymore. But
Whoa.
yeah, it was weird. It was very, oh yeah, that'll be a whole nother story. But I just prayed about it, and I knew that it was just a season of negativity, and that's not what I live on or believe. And I just went back to the drawing board and said what was important to me and what am I going to do to fix it. Like, I'm not getting people, so what else can you do? Like, don't be a one-trick pony is what I told myself. That's kind of where the books came from. Like, always have something else that you can work on. And if you don't get all the guests, it's fine. You got to be thankful and appreciative of what you've had so far. Because another thing I tell people is I haven't had to pay. I haven't had to pay for these guests. It's always been free of charge. And that's another mind-blowing thing in itself. You know what I mean? So just pushing forward and knowing that, I'll do greater things. I just have to keep my blinders on and going forward. When I start looking to the side or back or anybody, that's when you're in trouble. So that's what I would say for that. Just moving forward,
Love it. Yeah, no, your story to me, I mean, so many different elements of it, I think is so cool. So many of these guys that jump on and do this, and even us to some degree have had guys we could ask questions to, bounce things off. And man, I'm sure you've had a little bit of that, but the fact that you just like raw horsepower, like, I'm going to figure this out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm going to play with it till it works. And 5 years later, here you are. I think that's amazing.
Because I think you got to think, why not me? That's what I always told myself. Why not me? Why not you? Any of you guys? I really believe that. That's what I tell my kids. You're the you're the one person that can, define what happens to you. If you're willing to work and work and work, good things will happen. I truly believe that. It might not be the exact same path that you're maybe accustomed to or that you want, but sometimes you have to get it out of the mud, and it makes it that much sweeter.
So I want to backtrack a little bit for a second. And, you know, you were born in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and is that where your mom adopted you?
Yeah, I was born in Amarillo, and then I spent, I guess, a couple years at a foster home, and then she came and got me, and then I spent my early years in College Station, which is home of the Aggies for the college football fans. So Bryan College Station, and then she transferred her job out here, so I moved here in I believe it was the middle of second grade. Yeah.
So what was her career in?
So she was in the healthcare. She was basically uh a PA, really. I mean, she put herself through nursing school. Um, she kind of risen through the ranks over there, and then she started her career at the federal prison. Excuse me. And she transferred to a few different institutions, and then she made the move out here to Safford to work at the federal prison, and was the health service administrator. So basically, she was the person over the clinic slash hospital um, at the prison.
So, I mean, second grade, you're still fairly young at that age, but what was that experience like coming to a community like Safford? Um,
Terrible, terrible. Oh my gosh, I didn't want to leave. I still remember it. I mean, in Texas, we had a real modern house, but there was so much land. Everything was green, where I lived, and I kind of lived not too far away from the stadium, which they call it. I think it's Kyle Field now. So it was just different. The food was different out here. Um, I used to say y'all after everything, and the teachers could not stand it. Oh my gosh. They said it was slang, and they got me out of it. It was hard for a little while. And then we lived in a hotel. We lived in a hotel for 3 months at the Best Western in town, because it took a while for my mom to acquire housing, because they have a program where you can sell your house. If you don't sell it, the Bureau will buy it, and then they'll help you get into something, but it takes a while. So you can imagine me, my mom, and 3 dogs in a Best Western. It got old pretty quick.
Wild.
yeah, that's a testament to who Mike is, and I think there's been a lot of things that have built, and helped shape who you are, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on, man. Your story, your persistence is really inspiring. Also, sounds like your mom really blessed you with some gold nuggets, and thanks for sharing some of those today. Like the one that you said that stands out is not every action warrants a response. Like that's just so good. And sometimes that response or like, not responding is the best response.
Right.
So that's so good. Well, for listeners that want to follow along, find you, where can they find you on the socials, or like where's the best place for them to get connected with you?
Yeah, I'm on X. Always forget Twitter, whatever. It's at the Gains Positive. Instagram, make sure you follow the new account. It's at the new Positive Gains. I do have another one open, but I got hacked, and Instagram still fails to believe that it's me trying to get to my account. They believe I'm trying to hack. It's a whole nother story. Facebook, same thing, the Positive Gains. On TikTok, Positive Gains. So it's all pretty much the same.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Hey, Mike, could I ask one last question for you before we go? What would you if someone was looking for advice on just being a leader every day in their life, whether it's their job, they're wanting to start a podcast, they want to go out and influence, like what advice would you give to somebody that's just looking to be a little bit more of a leader in their life every day?
I would say start at home. Start at home first. If you've got a family, a wife, or a mister, start at home. Make sure that you're doing the things at home that that you need to be doing, and the kids are looking at you as an example. And then I feel like if your home life is good, then you'll be able to go out and lead and help others. That's the biggest thing. I think I ran into a few people and they've asked, and I've told them that. They're like, yeah, my home life isn't great right now. So I think if you can kind of connect the dots at home, then you can move forward, and then just a little at a time. Don't put so much on your plate. A vision board is what you do. It's what I have. Don't worry if you don't get to all of it. Excuse me. Just work on it as best as you can. But I really believe the home life, because you don't want to have your family suffer for something that you're working towards.
It's awesome.
So
Very sound advice.
how does Mike Gaines want to be remembered?
Hopefully a nice person, man. I was worried when Matt was telling stories. I was like, oh my gosh, man. Hopefully, because that is my fear, man. I see people and they're like, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, yeah, okay. So do you remember this? And I'm like, hopefully it wasn't bad. So, a nice person, a genuine person, somebody that people saw that was a regular guy that, cared about his family and tried to do the right things, even when nobody was watching.
Awesome. That is
Yeah,
my
I love
experience of you, Mike.
Yeah, I can without any doubt say you're a nice person.
I knew you would have something good, Tate. And Matt, I remember you from, like you said, the class. I was just like, oh, man, please let it be good. I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Nah, man,
that's
it's all
awesome.
good.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for your time, Mike.
Yes,
Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, go follow Mike and check his content out.
Go buy his book.
Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.